You're listening to The Flickcast, a pop culture podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and joining me, of course, my co-host and co-pal and co-dependent. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Some other co-words? Co-worker? No, I don't know. Anyway, it's Joe Dilworth. Joe Dilworth is here. Hello, Joe. How are you?
Hi, Chris. How are you? I'm co here. Yes.
You're co here. Yeah, I was trying to. I always try to think of something interesting to say about you because there's so many things. I think the problem
really
is there's too many things. And so I cannot think of I cannot distill it down to just one or two.
No, that's not true. I mean, co-host is good. That works.
Can you distill it to two things? Or usually when you're distilling something, it's down to one thing.
It is down to one thing. I don't think it can be down to two.
I don't know. I think you're right. I think you're right. I don't think you're right. So anyway, this is starting well. I'm very happy about this show.
This is good.
This is really
like
well.
It.
So let's get to business quickly. Find the Flickcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Google Podcasts, etc., places where you find podcasts. You can find us on Stitcher. I already said that. You can find us on the socials. I am Chris Yu, and he is What Joe Writes, and you can find us at The Flickcast, and also patreon.com/The Flickcast if you want to throw the show a couple bucks for this kind of amazing content that you're getting right now.
Yeah, people are going, I'm not giving any money to that. They can't
in fact, I want money back for the time I've wasted.
Right.
Already.
We're going to start a reverse Patreon. We'll pay you to listen to this show.
Is there a thing like that? There should be, because it's like, you wasted my time. You owe me $1.
I think so.
Or I want $2. Give me my $2.
Did you ever see the show? Was it Third Rock from the Sun?
I'm aware of the show.
Was that the John Lithgow sitcom where there were aliens that came to Earth?
Yeah.
So they had an episode where he did kind of did that with tipping, where he walks into the restaurant and sits down and puts a stack of money on the table, and he's like, "This is your potential. This is going to be your tip." And the waitress is like, "Oh, great!"
Wow.
And then every time she would, do something nice, he'd move some money over to another pile, and then if she did something he didn't like, he'd take money away. Was
that Lithgow's character was doing that?
Yeah.
Or was it Joko Lev? Because he was in that show, right?
Yeah, no, it was Lithgow's character.
I saw a trailer for some new Joseph Gordon-Levitt show on Apple Plus where he's a teacher, a disillusioned musician who happens to teach also.
Oh, really?
He's a failed artist, or not failed artist, but a frustrated artist who also is a teacher in his real life, and so he's he's upset about the way his life has turned out. So
I thought all he did nowadays was ask people on social media for their pictures, but
yeah, that's not weird. Right? No, he's probably been he doesn't have to work. He's been taking some time off, I'm sure, or doing other things. But no, developing a show for Apple is probably not that easy. I mean, it's
probably true.
It takes time. I'm sure it's not something he just pulled out of his ass, because he also writes it and directs it and everything else, and stars in it. So that's a lot of work, man. It's like a one-man show.
I might check it out.
But it's also interesting because he's also a singer in real life, and so he does a lot of the music.
What can't he do? That's all.
I don't know. He seems like a nice guy. I've never met him, but
he does seem really nice. He doesn't seem like a Shia LaBeouf guy that's gone off the edge or anything.
Not yet, anyway. Not yet.
Well, yeah, maybe that, or maybe we're about to see that happen.
That's cool. Right. He's going to blow up now, or the whole thing's going to explode. Implode. Yes. I think it's the word I'm thinking of. But,
implode. Yes.
I'm not sure how I got on that tangent. It's my fault. I apologize, because we have a lot of stuff to cover on this show. We should probably get to it. There's a lot of things that happened this week. Black Widow came out. It's very exciting.
Yep.
Or I should say last week, because by the time you hear this show, it'll be the Tuesday after Black Widow came out. But so we're going to talk about that.
Back at the movies. Yep.
Marvel's back at the movies, baby. And Loki, of course, went on a journey into mystery, which was an awesome episode. Yes. We'll talk about that. But first, I think we should mention, or we should pour one out maybe for director and all-around cool guy Richard Donner, who unfortunately passed away last week. I don't want to start the show on a downer, but
we got to acknowledge it though. He was
hugely influential director, I think.
Yeah. I think he influenced a lot of our tastes in movies. I don't think that's too big of a thing to say. And he directed and probably co-wrote and produced a lot of great stuff over the years. He was in his 90s, so definitely a good run. It's still sad that he's gone.
Oh, sure.
Because he was still planning on directing movies up until the end. So,
honestly, if you think about it, if your career just included like Superman or Lethal Weapon or one of these things, it would still be a big deal. But he did a lot of this stuff. But I would say that he was one of the people directly responsible for like the new kind of superhero renaissance, the blockbuster superhero movies. Because Superman, with Christopher Reeve, was it inspired lots of people, especially people who went on, I'm sure, to create more things in Marvel and DC and in the movies for superheroes. But it's like, you will believe a man will fly, and we've talked about this before. And it's like that movie was an amazing movie. I mean, that was a pretty good couple of years of movies. I mean, Star Wars the year before, and then Superman in 1978 was just like a big deal. And I remember seeing it in the theater and being totally mesmerized. I thought it was amazing. So I can't imagine that hasn't had an effect on people. And Lethal Weapon, I enjoyed too. A lot of the movies, so
Lethal Weapon kind of started the semi-comedic buddy cop genre. I mean, it launched that. There wasn't really that going on before Lethal Weapon. Goonies, I mean, hello. And he directed one of my all-time favorite Twilight Zone episodes, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. So
yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, I mean, and he also did. He could do a lot. He did horror. He did The Omen. He did Goonies, like you said. Lethal Weapon. A really funny Bill Murray film. I still like Scrooged. I watched that during the holidays.
That is a great movie. Yes.
So it's just an amazing career and an influential guy. And the thing I liked about, one of the things I liked about him is that that you never heard a bad story about him, and more things are coming out now that he was like a real mensch. I'll use that word, behind the scenes too, doing a lot of nice things for people, and helping people in their career, lifting them up. Helping people come up and helping people do things in their careers and in their lives that they wanted to do. And also a talented director, but not like a showy guy. You know what I mean? Like there's like a working kind of director, a technical guy who liked to do innovative, cool stuff, but kind of made it look more realistic. Like if you watch Superman, it's like, here's a regular setting. Like I remember being amazed that it's like, oh, it's a regular street and there's the Daily Planet. It's like not like a weird looking set. It was like a real location where they just had this guy flying, they try to ground it in reality, which I appreciated a lot. So anyway, that's just, I liked his directorial style, and I liked the fact that he kind of went for that sort of realism thing.
Well, and I think pretty much for most of his movies, if not all of them that he directed, there isn't a whole lot of digital or computer effects. He did everything practical, and he just he had a great eye. I just love the way his movies look. Yeah. He's left us with some fantastic movies, TV episodes. We could talk all episode about them, but
we could, but then we'd have to mention Mel Gibson probably more than once, unfortunately. So,
well, yeah, that gets a little.
You can't mention Lethal Weapon without mentioning Mel Gibson.
Right, and also Conspiracy Theory, which was another really good movie.
So. Yeah, I think he made like 5 or 6 movies with Mel Gibson, like at least. He did.
Yep. So, Lady Hawk, I forgot that he directed. There's all these great movies that he directed.
I like Lady Hawk a lot. I thought it was
Lady Hawk was amazing. Yes.
It was the very mellow Rutger Hauer, right? He was in Lady Hawk, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And Matthew Broderick playing Ferris Bueller Goes to Medieval Times kind of thing.
Ferris Bueller's Medieval Day Off.
Yeah, yes. That was pretty much what it was. Yeah, exactly, pretty much. So, yeah, I don't want to make the whole show about Donner or Dick, as we'll call him. Sure. We were tight like that. Yeah, but that's what so I would say that he was a very good director and a very good guy, and like you said, he had a good run. Yep. But he left a lasting legacy, and that's kind of all you can hope for as a filmmaker, I suppose. That people will still talk about your films, like we'll still talk about Superman 20 years from now, probably.
Absolutely.
I don't know if Lethal Weapon will always come up, but Superman will for sure. Superman. I mean, it'll always be kind of like the movie that other Superman films aspire to be. I think it's very aspirational or inspirational. You could say whatever you want. Like Bryan Singer was like, I'm making a sequel to this movie, Superman 2, because I love the Donner movies. And you can say whatever you want about Bryan Singer, and people have, and I have too. But he was smart enough to acknowledge the influence that Superman had. So anyway, there's that.
I think Goonies will live on in that way too. I'm not a huge Goonies fan. I think it's a great movie, but I don't dive into it like other people do. And that's okay. I don't have to, but that Goonies certainly has a lasting legacy and impression. So
It sure does. Well, especially since like Josh Brolin is still working,
yeah,
and Sean Astin too, and it's like even Corey Feldman, they're still around. Martha Plimpton, Short Round was in the movie. I mean, come on, it still gets referenced today.
Yeah, and in recent last couple of years, they've been talking about doing a new Lethal Weapon movie and a new Goonies sequel.
Well, sure.
So I don't think those will happen now, but.
Well, they could. They could absolutely.
Okay.
He doesn't necessarily own the rights to all that stuff, so he could make it.
No, but it just. Wouldn't be
I don't know if you could make Goonies today. I don't know. I think that'd be hard. I think that. I mean, you could, but it was a product of it. It's a product of its time. Like many of these things.
If you did a sequel to it, it would have to be a different kind of movie. It wouldn't.
Well, it's like all the Goonies are all grown up and they're like all corporate now or something. I don't know. That's a pretty obvious way to do it, I guess. But then they have kids who secretly do stuff and.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the magic part of it, like the whole like idea of discovery, it's like it's a pirate ship under what? I don't know if you could do that now. I don't know if people have that wide-eyed sort of optimism thing that people have anymore.
Maybe that's what they need, though.
Well, maybe. I mean, what year did the Goonies come out? That was like the 80s, right? Or late 80s,
mid 80s.
Yeah. 80.
Yeah.
It was a response to Reaganism or something, but
it may not be the sequel we deserve, but it may be the sequel we need.
Well, it's interesting too about Superman. I mean, Superman came out towards the end of the cynical 70s, the Nixon era and all that. And we've talked about this before a little bit. And I think we should do a deeper thing into Donner at some point.
Yeah.
But it's like, it was kind of like an antithesis of what was happening in the world, because Superman, for better or worse, believes in humanity, right? Believes in people are good. And truth, justice, and the American way, although you can't really say that now, I guess. But yeah, he was...
I think that influenced Nolan's Batman movies, because that was a central part, especially of the middle part of the trilogy, with Batman having faith that the citizens of Gotham would make the right decision. So, see, it influenced even that.
It did. Well, it did. And that's the thing about Batman. Batman is a cynic, but he also still believes. He's still a believer, otherwise he wouldn't do it. Right.
Absolutely.
He wouldn't go out in the middle of the night and beat up people if he didn't believe in, eventually in the good of some people, that the citizens would, rise up. And Donner, I'm sure, believed that same thing about people. And Superman obviously does, because he believes in, he believes in humans. Otherwise, he wouldn't bother.
The humans.
Well, the humans, yeah. Well, he grew up. He was lucky to grow up with some really good ones, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, we could get into Superman for a long time too. But we got Loki to get into, and also Black Widow. So
we'll talk more about Donner. So we should go from some sad news to talking about something truly horrible.
Wait,
and that
I thought we were going to talk.
War.
Oh, that's right. We got to do Tomorrow War first. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Well, only because it came out recently, and it's one of those things where obviously it was a theatrical release, intended for theatrical release, because it's a pretty big movie and it was expensive, and it has Chris Pratt, who's for better or worse, a movie star, not a TV star now.
Sure.
So, and I made this joke last week, but I'm gonna make it again. Is that I felt like Tomorrow War was sort of big and dumb, but entertaining, like Chris Pratt. So,
I feel like that there was a pitch at some point for a Tomorrow War, and the writer basically, because he hadn't written the script yet, was like, so this part of the movie, we want to do. It should be something like this scene from Independence Day, and it should be something like this scene from Alien. And the producers and stuff, like took that literally and said, "Cool, we'll just recreate those scenes," because it felt like it was just like, let's take all our favorite sci-fi movie tropes and scenes and throw them in a movie.
Well, of course, but why not? I mean, it still is something that people do. It's it's an homage, right? Not stealing from it. But I mean, even I'm sure Jim Cameron. Well, maybe not Jim Cameron, but people would acknowledge that they've borrowed from other things they saw. It's like you can't help but be influenced by that.
Here's the important part, though, is that those scenes put in, it was like, okay, so it seems like you're doing this in this part of the movie just because you want to emulate a different movie. It doesn't make any actual narrative or logical sense for the story you're telling. That was the part that was jarring to me. I'm like, what?
Well,
why?
Perhaps provide an example of what you're talking about.
Well, so like the dad. It's like, okay, so the dad is going to be a pilot because later in the movie we're going to need a pilot, and then
Wow.
and then Chris Pratt, his older daughter, is going to tell him what a terrible dad he turns out to be for no other reason than to have a dramatic moment between the two, because nothing else to that point is indicated this guy would be like that other than his dad was like that. So it's just like, what? And then
I don't know. I mean, he was very disgruntled if you think about it,
yeah,
because he didn't get that job that he
but they
wanted,
made a
and he was
point in that scene where he didn't get the job. That what does he do? He goes and sits with his daughter and wife, and
yeah, but he's just faking
takes
it at that
solace.
point. Look, he's like that face, like, oh,
No,
you've done
he's
that.
not.
I'm sure everyone's done that. Everyone's pretended everything was okay when it wasn't, right?
You're going a long way to try to force that. Sorry, it doesn't
No,
work.
come
It
on.
just does not work.
And
And
you
I was
also
like,
you also know that things that are set up in the beginning of the movie have to get paid off, right? So they do need a
but
pilot
they
at the
didn't
end.
set that up. If it had been where he didn't get the job and he snapped at his daughter and went off into the room by himself and didn't that would have been like, okay, I could believe
Yeah.
that he would turn out like that. But he doesn't do that,
Yeah.
and he particularly doesn't do that because his dad did. So
Right.
I'm like, what? How does that does not make any sense for this
Or
character that you've shown us?
did she just say that to try to
To
get him to motivate him to do
I
something?
don't think they
Did
thought
she
that clever about the
manipulate him?
story. The
No?
story's not that clever. No.
It's not that clever. No. No,
No.
I agree.
No.
I agree with you. It wasn't particularly clever. It was a lot of lazy sort of coincidence and lazy writing, but I will say, and I'm joking about like, oh, it was entertaining, because it kind of was. It was dumb, but in an entertaining way, and I liked some of the supporting characters in particular more than I like Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt. Here's the thing about Chris Pratt. He's perfect for one thing. He's
Yes.
perfect for Star-Lord, maybe.
Yes.
Like the wisecracking kind of that guy when he's with a strong ensemble, which is why he was good on Parks and Recreation, because he had a strong ensemble around him. If he
Yes.
has to carry the movie on his shoulders,
I
as
don't think so.
he can't, I don't think he can do it. I don't think he's got the chops that are necessary for this kind of part. He just seemed uncomfortable, kind of sometimes. Like, I'm being asked to do something that I don't know that I can do. And maybe that was the character, or maybe that was just his performance or whatever. But I feel like deep down, Chris Pratt knows that he's not,
Yeah.
an action star necessarily. Although, and as an action star, what do you really have to do, right? I mean, he can certainly, hold a rifle and run around and blow stuff up, and that's fine. But to do the family moments, he wasn't. He wasn't quite
Yeah.
up to the task
Well,
for the other emotion stuff. But
and I will say on the good side, I thought there were some really great performances. I didn't feel like anybody was just like collecting a paycheck. It was well acted, and there were definitely parts of the movie, and actually reading the story on paper, it's like, yeah, this sounds like a really good movie, and there were parts of the movie that were really good. It's just like, so you could tell when he's meeting the characters at the beginning, it's like, okay, so just based on the conversations they had with the recruits, so we know who's going to die and who's
yeah,
not. Especially the plucky sidekick who immediately says, "I just know I'm going to die." It's like, okay, well, he's obviously going to live at the end till the end.
oh sure,
And make some quip at the end to tie
no,
up the movie.
he's gonna live. Yeah, that guy's gonna live. No problem.
But the other people, it's like, yep, they're all going to die.
Well, you need people to die to show how the monsters work. I
I
mean,
know that,
that's
but
a
it's just
whole
like,
thing. I mean, come on.
don't do it cliched. And then it's like, oh, we got this whole army that's going to go back, and of course, for that one group, the sending them back goes horribly wrong, and most of them get killed. I'm like, okay.
Well, they're upping the stakes, man.
And why would you take the queen of the bad guys and not only have Parker right outside the lab where you're trying to research her, but also like right underneath your very important and super secret time jump thing? It's like, what?
Well, it was
That
their
makes no
last
sense.
bastion of whatever. That was the only place
Put
that
her
was
in a
safe.
different building under the water or something, not right where all your important stuff is. Especially since you just saw her call all the.
I don't know if there's a lot of
sorry.
planning that went on to any of that. It's like we have to just sort of make this look cool, right?
Yes. Here's my thinking though. I think, especially since it was supposed to be released to the theater, I'm wondering if there's a bunch of stuff that got cut. because there's only like an hour and a half, which, I mean, I guess saying only an hour and a half, that's typically what movies are, but it
It's
feels
138 minutes. That's more than an hour and a half.
wow. It feels like there are things that could have been in there that would have explained a lot of this or worked better. So I wonder if there is a layered cut out there somewhere of the Tomorrow War that makes it a better movie.
Release the McKay cut. That's what you're asking for?
Yes. So, I mean, did you feel like that at all, or did you feel like this is?
I mean, now that you're talking about it, I felt like in some ways that. Here's what I think. I think there was a movie that they had completed, and then they're like, whether there was pickups or reshoots or whatever. I feel like there was like a bunch of different patchwork going on. There was some things that didn't make sense, and I feel like that they maybe did reshoots and added some different stuff. But yeah, it felt kind of disjointed a little bit. Although I did like the fact that they went back to the classroom and had to talk to the volcano kid. I thought that was a funny payoff.
That was kind of cool.
But it's like, I know volcano. Thank God, and there was some things that I enjoyed. I mean, I like Ivan Strahovski, and J.K. Simmons was ripped. He was jacked for this thing.
Yeah, he was.
And Betty Gilpin, who was totally wasted in the movie, unfortunately.
Yes.
But
it's just too much coincidental stuff. I mean, like one or two coincidence things I can kind of forgive, but when the resolution of your movie and the outcome and your last third of your movie are dependent on paying off about a half dozen coincidences you set up previously, it's like, okay. And it did feel like kind of two movies. It was like suddenly now
that's what I mean.
An alien movie. It's like, what? So
I like sci-fi, and I like creature movies, and I like humans battling. But it's like the thing, like Battle for Los Angeles. Remember that one?
Yes.
It's like they all kind of look the same. And how do you make the creatures look interesting? How do you do this? How do you do that? I think this one was maybe slightly more aspirational, where they were trying for some higher level of intelligence, quote unquote, but they just didn't reach it. But at least they tried. I feel like they had some more loftier ideas about the future and about environment and about this and about. They were trying to put some stuff in there, and they try to explain some of the science. And I thought they were like we were talking about last week. They were talking about how why can't you make more wormholes or whatever. I thought they kind of did a decent job of explaining why that wasn't possible, or like we only had time to do this, or it's just an experiment or whatever. That kind of stuff made sense, because obviously they can't have more than one time machine, because otherwise there's no point. But I guess one of my questions is, why not just go back in the future, go to the past and wait for the aliens? But then that kind of makes sense too, the way they figured out that the aliens were already here and they'd thawed out. This is, I should say, spoilers for this movie, but
sure,
they thawed out from the ice cap, which I thought was interesting too. So anyway,
a couple things. I mean, first of all, yes, I get it. I think they did an okay job explaining the technology and why they couldn't just do a bunch of wormholes and all that stuff. But I'm like, here's the thing: if your time travel technology is still experimental and you're still theorizing and work on it, why don't you send the technology that you've already developed back through the wormholes, so that gives you 30 years head start on developing it. So by the time you get to the future, you have something that works much better. Right? I mean, that's what they did with the virus thing. It's like, let's send this back and you can develop it. It's like,
but then you wouldn't need the rest of the movie. You wouldn't need soldiers to go into the future and die in a week or whatever.
And the other thing, it really felt like, and I know we just said this, that it felt like two movies mashed together. My whole thing is the whole end with Arctic and the buried under. That's your sequel. Your first movie is establishing the Tomorrow War, and then they think, okay, we brought the virus back, we think we've won, and that's where you end it. And then the second one begins with one of the future people going, I remember this. That doesn't fix it. We've got to figure this out. And then you have your alien homage movie. So
maybe, or your Thing homage.
That's why I just feel like it was like a 2.5 hour movie, and they said, yeah, no way, we're going to put this in the theater, knock it down to an hour and a half, and then even later when Amazon bought it, they're like, "Yep, that's good. It's a good action movie." And they're like, "Yeah, but we have these other parts that expand on this." And they're like, "Yeah, nobody cares about that. We got a good action movie. Let's do it." That's my
Yeah,
thing.
that's interesting. Maybe there was more like sciencey nerd stuff, and they cut it down to make it more actiony, or
And just more, more scenes that developed some of the parts that didn't make sense a little bit
well, I
better.
mean, I'm sure there is. I like to read the script
Yeah,
and just see because you never know. But yeah, I mean, things get changed in during the shooting and in post and whatever. Um, it's just funny to me that Chris Pratt's character was a Green Beret veteran who then became a school teacher, but also happens to be a biology professor who wants to like
right.
work in a think tank or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and
I
just
don't know.
happens to have a volcano expert in his classroom. And they see it's too
Well,
much.
that was funny.
Too
But
much.
you know, if you
Yeah,
watch any kind of disaster movie, there's always those coincidences. But yeah, I don't know. You kind of have to
if you,
suspend your disbelief, I guess. I don't know.
I guess if you squint and kind of don't listen too much,
Yeah, there you go.
it's a pretty good movie.
Exactly. Well, don't think about it too much.
I probably won't watch it again though. I'll say that.
Check your brain at the door. I mean, you could pick
Yeah,
apart Independence Day. You could pick apart all the movies that it ripped off too. Although I
sure.
don't know if you could do too much to pick apart Aliens. That's a pretty solid film, but
Yeah,
or Alien. I mean, it's hard to pick those up. But
yeah.
Independence Day has some flaws for sure.
I
But
don't see revisiting this movie unless they do say, "Oh, hey, there's a director's cut." But they are
well,
making a
they're making
sequel,
a sequel
so
apparently.
they
So
are.
yeah.
And oddly enough, everyone is back, even the people that got killed.
Well, they got
So,
killed in that future. So
well,
in the alternative future, then they're still
Edwin
alive.
Hodges' character, the cancer guy that blew up the spaceship, he's coming back too.
Well, it's a time travel story, so
Okay,
anything's possible. Look,
all right.
there was some definite standouts. Sam Richardson for sure was a standout.
Edwin Hodge, I always like him.
Yeah,
He's a
he
great,
was good too.
solid actor.
He actually seemed to have a character to play too,
Right,
which was cool.
exactly. So
I would
like all
watch
the
him. I
other,
would watch a movie about his squad. They
yeah,
seemed more interesting.
the rest of the characters just kind of paled compared to. It's like we spent all this time developing this one character, and we don't have time to really dig into the others. But we'll just make them stereotypes. It'll be fine.
Well, yeah, brevity, right?
Right.
You got to get moving. I got to blow up some stuff and get the aliens and do all that, and you have to have time for the
You're
parts
right
with
though
Chris
about
Pratt.
Betty Gilpin, who's awesome. That she was. I like the fact though that she did kind of for the end gambit come up with the idea of what was going on. She's like, well, what if blah blah blah. But
True, but still kind of wasted.
yeah,
She could have played the Yvonne Strahovski part. I mean, she could have played the daughter in the future.
totally. Or
Um,
we could have had her as the main character who goes off to war. But
and see, I would have watched that too. I
yeah,
absolutely watch that, and she would have
yeah.
been great. I would, yeah. There you go. That would have been a better movie because she's a better actor than Chris Pratt. So I would say
I think she
I
could
would
carry the movie better than him. You're right.
I would
Yeah,
totally watch her go into the future, and I mean maybe that'll be the sequel. Maybe she'll be the one,
maybe.
or like in True Lies, like then it becomes both of them. They both become spies, right? So now Chris Pratt and Betty Gilpin will both have to go into the future to fight the aliens who apparently are still alive
Yeah. Somehow.
somehow. Okay, so
Don't
we've
think too
we
much about it.
don't think too much about it. Yeah, how do you make a sequel to something like this? I guess you do if it's successful, which apparently it is. So you're going to want another one. So
Yeah. All right. Well,
there you go. But now we could turn to something that was much better.
yes, we can.
Well, I say it's much better. I don't know if you liked it as much as I did, but I really enjoyed Black Widow. I thought it was a fitting entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and after 2 years, it was nice to get another Marvel movie. Although I did watch it on my TV at home, I did not go to the theater to watch it. But yeah, I loved
Yeah.
it. I thought it was great. I love Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, of course, amazing. David Harbour, amazing. Rachel Weisz, amazing. Everyone was pretty damn good.
Yes.
There was good jokes. There was good, family stuff. There was good action, amazing action. I mean, like, oh, Marvel can do action. I forgot about that on a big scale because
Yes.
it's a movie, so shit really blew up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really well done. I enjoyed it very much, and partially it was just like, finally, we get to see this
Yes.
thing. It's like finally we're seeing a Marvel movie that's been delayed for 2 years or whatever it's been.
I know.
But also because it's what was I reading? It said that basically it took 12 years to get a Black Widow movie when we've already had like 2 Ant-Man movies and we've already had like all these other solo movies for lower tier characters. And meanwhile, Natasha Romanoff just sitting there, not getting her movie. And finally, she did, thank goodness. And it was good. So that's what I think. What did you think of it?
I liked it a lot. I felt weird though, because I'm pretty sure this is the one and only Marvel MCU movie I haven't seen in the theater when it came out.
Yeah, me too.
So I felt a little weird watching it at home, but I just thought it was outstanding. My initial thought was this should have come out right after Civil War, when it was based, because that would have been a good placement for it, I think. But yeah, no, it was really great. I like the fact that, we've had all these, even starting with Civil War, we've had all these Marvel movies, even though they've been on individual characters that have been just this huge scope, and we've all been just kind of waiting for them to lead into, the big Infinity War and Endgame and all this kind of stuff. And this brought things back more personal. I liked it. I thought it was great. It was not a world-shattering, universe-ending kind of movie, but it's just really good. Everyone was phenomenal in it.
It reminded me of like the first Avengers movie where they had to bring things to the ground.
Yeah.
For people to fight, like Cap had to fight on the ground, and Natasha and Hawkeye and everything. But yeah, it was a I say the word grounding it, but it was a grounded story about. I mean, one thing that I took away from it is it was about forgiving. Natasha had to forgive her old quote unquote family, right? So she had to forgive Alexei, and she had to forgive Rachel Weisz's character Milena for lying to them and having the fake family, so she could go back and repair her new family that got broken up, right? Because this is after, like you said, after Civil War, where Tony and Cap fell out hard, right? As Tony says. Yep. And so now she had to go back and do this and reconnect with her sister and reconnect with everybody and sort of be able to say, okay, everything's going to be okay with you guys. I forgive you for all of this. So she could go back and learn to get her other family back together and get Cap back together. Because what happens at the end of Civil War, Cap is already at the raft, right?
Right.
Breaking everybody out of jail. So, or is it the raft, or are they I think they're at the raft. But anyway,
the raft,
and so she's going back at the end of Black Widow, and we should say spoilers for Black Widow if you haven't seen it. But why haven't you? It's amazing. And so she's going to go meet him, and they're going to do that, right? So and she's already got the blonde hair. She's already wearing the vest, which I think is funny.
Yeah, that was like the origin of the vest. That was
the origin of the vest. I was wondering what happened to the vest. It's got lots of pockets, I mean,
yes.
If anything, I took away from this movie too is that Florence Pugh is going to blow up big. I mean, she's going to be huge.
Awesome.
She's great. So great. Yeah, she can do the emotion. You felt the stuff from her almost more in some ways than you did from Scarlett Johansson. I mean, Scarlett Johansson's really good too, but But they had really good play against each other. They had really good chemistry together. But she can do the action, she can do the emotions, and she can do the jokes. She's funny too.
Yeah, and she can totally be Black Widow in the present day. I think. I mean, she's gonna be Black Widow. I mean, if the post credits scene is any indication, she will definitely be back. Yes. Apparently she's going to be in the Hawkeye TV series as Black Widow. So there we go.
Right. Because, big spoiler for that, but that's like the big reveal at the end. But yeah, so, I loved it. I thought it was great. And David Harbour, man, love that guy, man. He's fucking awesome.
Awesome. That was
the Red Guardian, that whole thing in the prison when they're talking is like, that one guy's like, how could that be in the 80s? Because Captain America was still frozen. Like, nah, I mean, he breaks his arm, basically. Oh, no, you're crying.
Well, and they break him out of prison, and the first thing he asks her is, did Captain America ever talk about him? It's great.
Yeah, that was great. Did Captain America ever mention me?
Like, that's, and I did like Florence Pugh making fun of the hero drop that Black Widow always does. That running joke was really funny, I thought. In this movie.
Yeah, and she tries it and doesn't like it. Why'd you do that thing with your... Although I did find it weird that they were having this really, really like personal conversation in a gas station where there's a guy like listening to them.
Right, who's probably going to turn them in, right?
They're on the run from everybody, but it's like, let's take a minute and have... That was a weird scene, I thought. I mean, it was a good scene, but it was like strange to be doing that in public. But although, I don't know, do you listen to other people talk? You're like, what are you talking about?
Not really.
I mean, and I always wonder how someone like Natasha Romanoff can like travel internationally when she's wanted by the government, because she shows up in Budapest and it's like, no problem, I'm just getting off the train or whatever.
Yeah.
And she hasn't changed her hair or her appearance or anything.
Right.
I know having different papers is one thing, but you still are an Avenger. People know what you look like. It's not like you're a private citizen. So, and you can just pretend. I mean, and she was still a redhead.
Fairly recognizable, yeah.
Fairly recognizable. But I did like the idea, and this struck me as I was watching. It's like, oh, she's trying to erase the red. Literally erase the red, which is why she's holding the blonde dyes. Like, I'm getting rid of the red. My hair, too. Which I thought was kind of an interesting visual metaphor for what she was trying to do. And then we learn more about Dreykov's daughter, because they talk about that. And even Loki talks about Dreykov's daughter in the first Avengers, I think. He's like, can you erase that much red from your ledger? Even Dreykov's daughter. I think he talks about that.
Yeah.
And we find out what happened to her, and we find out about Dreykov. But I was I was wondering how they were going to talk about, because like when she goes to the planet, to Vormir, to get the Soul Stone, they call her daughter of Ivan, which I was wondering who Ivan was. But maybe just Ivan is like the daughter of Russia, because she doesn't know her family. Although we do find out more about her mother. Although maybe Dreykov was totally bullshitting on that one, so we don't know. Yeah. But I thought it was great. I'm going to watch it again. I think it'll be one that I watch more than once, and it was definitely a good lead into the events that happen after this. I mean, into Endgame and to everything.
I just wish they would have done this a while ago, because it sets everything up great, especially like with the guy that gets her all the stuff, and a lot of background characters. That was like, I want to see 2 sequels to this story, because they just set it up really well. And it's like, man, I want to see more.
You could see Alexei and I mean, all the widows could come back. I mean, all the widows that got and Yelena, of course, Florence Pugh can come back.
They could do a sequel that's set like after the snap, about her trying to find out who in her family still around and stuff like that. I think.
But I do wonder. Oh, that's an interesting point. I wonder if all of these people got snapped away by Thanos, because where was like Red Guardian during Endgame? Why didn't he show up at the end?
Right.
Why didn't Yelena show up at the end?
Yeah.
To fight with Natasha, although Natasha was dead at that point. But where were all these people? Right.
Right.
So were they snapped away? Probably.
Maybe.
But then they didn't come back on their left. So I don't know.
They didn't come. Yeah. So I would like to see. I want to see sequels to it. That's how good it was. I want to see more to the story of her interacting with these people, or at least more about them, because they great characters. It's just a solid story, and it was really, really well done.
And good for Scarlett Johansson too, because this is kind of a great. I mean, this is a great way to end your sort of tenure as a Avenger in the movies. It's like you did that in Endgame. You got to sacrifice yourself to save the universe, but also then you also get a solo film where you can still tie up the character really well, because the end of this movie, she's going to do the things that lead to her death eventually, and then of course the post-credit sequences, she's gone. But it's just it was a good send off for her, and I don't think we'll ever see her as Natasha again, probably, but that's okay, because you can set up so many other super interesting people. I mean, Florence Pugh will come back in Hawkeye, as we said, but maybe in other things too. I would like to see another Black Widow movie with her, and you could bring back David Harbour, and I'd like to see Rachel Weisz in her Black Widow costume as much as possible.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah. I like the little switcheroo they did with the face masks and stuff.
I hate to say it, but I knew that was going to happen. I mean, I know it's easy to say that now, but I'm like, they switched. They have a plan. It's not like Natasha's not stupid. They're not just going to walk in and get captured.
Well, especially when she said they're on their way, and then we don't see them for an entire scene.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they're busy setting something up. Obviously, they're smart. So
they're smart.
And Taskmaster, I want to see more of Taskmaster, because that was a good setup. So
you absolutely can, but Taskmaster is not being controlled by Dreykov anymore, so she can.
What is she
she's
doing?
not. Yeah. She's not under the thumb of a man. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
trying to erase her identity. I mean, there's definitely some of that kind of stuff in this movie, which I appreciate. It's relevant to today's interests as well.
Yes.
Also directed by a woman, Kate Shortland, which is great for Marvel. Written by dudes, but
the story was co-written by Jack Schaefer, though, who wrote WandaVision. So,
no, it was good. It was really good, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, you're right. I wish it had come out a couple years ago, but it was supposed to.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think it would have been nice for it to have come out around the time of Civil War, even back around then, like right after that or something. But
there was too many things going on. They wouldn't have been able to do that. I mean, that's the one thing that's bad about, I guess, as a negative about going back and trying to shoehorn in a movie that takes place between different timelines of things, or between different times of stuff that's already happened. It's like it doesn't always make sense.
Yeah,
because you can't necessarily cover all your bases. But it's interesting how, like when they first meet them in like the 90s, and like 95 was a big year for Marvel because that's also the year that Carol Danvers came to Earth, right? They were dealing with that, and so there was a whole bunch of stuff. S.H.I.E.L.D. was spread pretty thin, which is why they can escape. I like the fact that there was like that homage to The Americans. You ever watch that show, The Americans? Like about Russian sleeper cells in America. It was cool. Like they were Russian spies, and I always wondered why Dreykov didn't use Red Guardian more. It was kind of fun. He was very disgruntled about that he was like stuck in this dead jaw. I want to break faces,
Yes.
So
yes.
Anyway, he's not as heroic as he thought. He's comic and tragic, right?
I will say that I really hope it's not the last we see of all those characters. So
no, it can't be, right? It can't be.
Yeah, I would hope not, because they're just great characters.
There can definitely be, if they do another Black Widow film, or they do a thing with Florence Pugh as Black Widow, which they should. If they're not going to, they should.
Yes.
Then you can bring everybody can come back. They can the widows can go do stuff and be a force for good, because they're definitely building to a new big bad, whether it's Kang or whether it's
yes,
whether it's Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, Valentina,
with the Dark Avengers,
or with the Thunderbolts, because
yes,
General Ross is in this one.
Yeah.
So who knows? But yeah, that was and heavy spoilers now. But seeing Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character at the end, which was also weird because they like have a wide shot of Florence Pugh at the thing, and she's like alone, and then all of a sudden, boom, cut to the close up, and she's like there.
Yes.
So is she coming in from a TVA time door, or is she a temp pad, or
maybe?
And this isn't my analysis, but I did watch something the other day where if you turn TVA upside down, it looks like it spells Val.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't my analysis. That was I think New Rockstars, but. So is she a time agent, or is she work for Kang? Because she does have purple, and Kang's colors are purple.
Maybe she's running the TVA.
Maybe she's Kang in disguise. Who knows?
Could be.
So, but that'll come up in our Loki discussion in a minute. But
sure.
Seeing her just show up, which is weird to me.
Yes.
But obviously, Yelena Belova is now the new Black Widow, or the new, whatever, because they're all I guess they were all Black Widows technically, but she's the new hotness, which is fine because she's hot.
For the most part too. Everybody did fairly decent Russian accents. So
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I would say if I had any criticism of Florence Pugh or David Harbour, is they slipped in and out of their accents a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially when he was singing "Bye Bye Miss American Pie," he couldn't do it in a Russian accent very well. But,
yes.
But then you have to ask yourself, if they're actually Russian, why are they speaking with a Russian accent and not just speaking Russian to each other? But that's another story.
That's a whole.
Because they all speak Russian, so why wouldn't they just be speaking it, or English? Right, they speak Russian with English with a Russian accent,
Because they did speak Russian here and there. So
they did, and if they're trained spies who are infiltrating America, they'd speak perfect English.
Right. Exactly.
Right? They wouldn't necessarily have an accent, but
they did when they were in America in the
flashbacks.
But
if they are speaking English to each other, then they would still have flawless English. They wouldn't be speaking English with a Russian accent. They would be speaking a Russian, or that's a conceit for the movies. Like, oh, don't forget these people are Russians, or whatever they are.
I just think we also at this point need a Disney Plus TV series that's all about Rachel Weisz and her trained pigs, because those were awesome.
Yeah, it was funny how she was like, "Okay, don't breathe now." Yeah,
and I want to know what happened to the pigs, because
oh, that's true. Well, you have to assume that she went back to the farm and the pigs were fine. They went to the safe place. They went to their safe place.
Yes, and they have probably stuff in there that helps them be fed.
Well, pigs can eat anything and can live forever. But
they were smart pigs too, so they could figure. They probably cook eggs and stuff like that for themselves.
They're probably like taking over the house. If they had like opposable thumbs, they'd be running the country by now.
Yeah.
So
I want to see more of the intelligent pigs.
Yeah, I thought that was a great character bit for her. Like, she's a scientist and a super, she's obviously a very intelligent person, but also went to the Red Room too, and she was a Black Widow as well at one point, but became more valuable as a scientist. But yeah,
I went to the Red Room like 3 times before you were born or something like that. It's like, geez.
Yeah. Well, which also means, as they pointed out in graphic detail at one point in the helicopter, she couldn't have kids either.
Right.
Which is why I think she was so attached to Natasha and Yelena when they were young, because she couldn't have her own kids. And so it was all, that's an interesting point, because it's all about like a surrogate family, because none of them can really have kids for real. Yet that's why family is so important to all of them. And that's why Yelena was so upset when she's like, don't call it fake. Don't call it, a lie, because it bothers me, because that's the only family I'll ever really have, which is true.
Yes.
She's never going to have kids. She's never going to have anything. Although you could just adopt. It's not that
bad. I think they did a great job, especially with Harbor and Vice, where, they were trying to put on the persona that, it's just a mission, it was no big deal. But when it came down to it, our girls and stuff like that, it's like,
well, okay. I feel like they really cared about each other.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a mission for them either. I think that they kind of really liked each other a lot.
Especially when they do the thing where he comes out in the Red Guardian and he and Rachel Weisz are like flirting, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're not doing this."
I've been in prison for a long time. I have lots of energy,
Yes.
Well, that's like you don't want to see your parents have sex.
It's right. Exactly. So no, it was well written and just.
And I like the fact, that they took time for those kind of moments, because that was the action was cool, but this movie was not about stuff blowing up. This movie was about your family and what it means to have a family. I mean, it's like F9. It's about family, right? It's all about. So this is kind of like Fast and the Furious meets Black Widow, right?
Well, Marvel has always done, I think, a great job with that, mixing the big action sequences with grounded, as we said earlier, but very personal stories. So they make you actually care about the characters and worry about them and hoping they come out okay. So that was well done, and they do the same thing in Loki this week. I
only have one more question about Black Widow.
Yeah.
So my feeling is that, well, there was some rumors that the whole post-credit sequence was already in the movie with Valentina.
Yes.
But my question is, I wonder if it was changed in any way, because there's a close-up of that iPad where, and of course people are like, I thought Apple products were only for the heroes, so how did they get an iPad? She's a bad guy. Right. But that's a different story. Surprised Disney let that go, although Disney doesn't own Apple. But It's like, was that always the story, or was it changed now because this came out so much later, and now it's about, because it does lead into Hawkeye. Is Hawkeye all about Hawkeye being chased by Yelena? I mean, maybe she figures prominently in the show. I guess we'll find out. But it's just, it's interesting, because this is the guy who's responsible for Natasha's death, which is total bullshit, of course. But
they said with all the interviews with Falcon and the Winter Soldier that that scene was always in Black Widow, and they adjusted things in Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think, maybe.
Maybe.
But maybe they did. It's possible. I mean, maybe there was more to that.
Well, we'll never know. I mean, it'll probably never come out what the true intent was. And I only asked because this movie was supposed to come out 2 years ago.
Right.
Or a year and a half ago or whatever. So before Falcon and Winter Soldier, before any of that stuff. And this was the first time we were supposed to see Valentina.
Right.
But
it was obviously a tease, but we got the meteor scenes with her before that now, which is kind of
right. So was there more?
Weird,
was there more to? Maybe there was more to this scene than, and they could cut it down because we already saw her in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
recruiting U.S. agent.
Yes.
So anyway, we'll find out. But it also makes sense because what's his face's character? Oh boy, I'm trying to think. The opposite of the Hulk. Oh boy, never mind. Because he's going to supposedly be in
Banner.
No, not Banner.
No. The Abomination.
Abomination. Thank you. Yeah. So Tim Roth is supposedly in the Hawkeye show, but also in I mean, he looks like at least Abomination is in Shang-Chi too.
They acknowledge that is him in the trailer. So
also there you go. Yeah. So Tim Roth's character is going to come back because he's a member. Abomination, I think, is part of the Thunderbolts at some point too. So anyway,
yeah.
I don't know. There's so many comics things I can never remember. And obviously they changed Taskmaster quite a bit, but that's okay. I like this version better, I think. So
well, they have a lot of stories to draw on, obviously, from the comics, and they don't have to do them exact. They can take parts and combine.
Well, no, because I mean, in the comics, Taskmaster is some dude who has like a combat memory or photographic memory or something. But this is more interesting. Like she's programmed to fight. Yes. And it makes more sense for the story about, women breaking free of their oppressors, which Marvel's doing a lot more of, girls getting it done kind of. I'm not trying to joke about it. It's just it's definitely there. Yeah. But I thought it was interesting that the first thing that Taskmaster says is he gone? Like, yeah, because she obviously knew what was happening to her but couldn't control it. Right. And so was happy that her father was dead, which I thought was an interesting way to go. But anyway,
he was a creep. Man, Ray Winstone is
awesome
at playing the very smarmy bad guys.
Ray Winstone is one of those people who, if you see him in other things, he is scary. I mean, he could be really, really scary. But also, he's been in some stuff where he's played a really nice guy too.
True.
So he's an amazing actor. I've always been a fan of his, and the fact that he's in this non-sympathetic role and definitely with a lot of men. I mean, he's an old guy, but you feel like he's like evil personified almost. It's like I'm doing this. I'm having this influence. I've been running things behind. You definitely buy him in the scenes with him and with Scarlett Johansson especially. He's excellent. And that's good because you needed somebody like that as sort of this. He looks like maybe sort of a mild-mannered guy in a way because he's like an older guy with glasses, but he's like pulling the strings, man. He's a boss. He's a boss for sure. So it was good. So anyway, all right. So we should transition to Loki, the Journey into Mystery. Okay, so I will say this about Journey into Mystery. It is I keep saying this, but this is my favorite episode of Loki so far.
I agree. Yeah, it was.
It was so good. So many things going on in this thing. I mean, so many things. So many little bits. I love the fact that Loki's like, it's cold here, and he's like part frost giant, but he's like, I'm going to get a blanket, and then I can snuggle, just so I can get my arm around you, Sylvie. And it's just
Loki
he's a trickster, that guy.
Yeah,
he's a trickster.
Yeah,
but I feel like he's pulled that thing a few times with ladies or with gentlemen, depending on his situation.
I'm sure. Yeah,
but it's not the first time. And I love the fact that they ended up doing the get help when Kid Loki throws alligator Loki to the things. They do the whole get help thing like they used to do with Thor.
Yes.
That was pretty funny. But yeah, I love this episode. There was so many great Easter eggs. I mean, come on. Thanos copter.
That was so awesome.
Just like sitting there, and it's canon now. It's real.
I know, exactly.
And I should say spoilers for Loki. Sorry, Journey into Mystery.
There's a alternate universe somewhere where Thanos used the helicopter, and I love that. That's great.
Yeah, it's canon. And also there's an alternate universe where Throg exists too.
Yes.
Thor but what's so interesting about that is that Throg is trapped in that jar. And then you pass Mjolnir, like a full-size Mjolnir, though. So how is he going to wield this giant hammer if he's a frog, Thor?
He wielded it in the comics, and even the title on the jar, it was like T365 or whatever is the issue that Throg first appears. That's great.
Well, they do that a lot with license plates and everything. Yes. It's a lot of times it's an homage to the comic that it first appeared in, which is cool. It's like a little Marvel Easter eggs, but that was just like a throwaway thing as they're going down through which they did in WandaVision too. They would go through like the building, but they go through the dirt. They see more trays from lunch, and stuff. So the question I had about the TVA, are they just like not cleaning their trays or just zapping into the void
It's like
instead?
you need to clean your dishes. No, I don't.
No, I don't. To avoid doing dishes? It's like there's our water storage in the future? I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, exactly. There's no water in the quantum realm. So
it's a huge pile of, well, they all drink juice boxes and stuff. They don't actually.
Oh, that's true.
Interesting.
That's true.
So maybe water can't exist in the quantum realm. But
they don't flush the toilets. They just purge them.
Well, they're all variants, but it doesn't mean they don't go potty. So I don't know.
Anyway, there's a lot of little things in there. A living tribunal's head. People that don't read the comics don't really know what that is, but there was Yellow Jacket's helmet. There was even a helicarrier and the Dark Aster Ronin ship in the background in some scenes. It's like, holy crap! There's a lot of stuff.
Well, there was just a helicarrier. It was a helicarrier with the Hydra logo on it.
Yeah.
And an intact Sphinx without a broken nose.
Yes. Yeah.
So why was all this stuff pruned, I wonder, or was it? The question is, like, I guess the Sphinx was supposed to have a broken nose in the regular timeline, so they had to like prune it to someplace else. But so the premise of this is that all of these things, all the variants, all the stuff that's not supposed to be there goes to this void at the end of time. So naturally, as we talked about in the last episode, Loki meets other versions of Loki, like classic Loki, Kid Loki, Alligator Loki, and they call him Boastful Loki, right? So,
yes. Alligator Loki is the best.
He's the best. And I don't know, man, Richard E. Grant was awesome in this episode.
Oh, yeah, he was pretty great.
And I'm sort of bummed out about what happens, but it's like you get a guy like that who's so good in this part, and you just use him for one episode? I don't know. I kind of wonder what's going to happen in the next one.
Yes.
Because he's a trickster. Maybe he's, there
could still be more out there. In
classic Loki all along. So I would totally like to see him again. I would love to see him again. So
I think it's great that you have Richard E. Grant, right? So you put him in an absolutely ridiculous costume, but he does awesome in the role.
He totally pulls it off. Yeah. You forget about the costume in 2 seconds because he's so fucking good.
Yeah.
I don't know why that guy doesn't have he's been an actor for so long and been in so many great things, but he's like, he's amazing. And I don't know why he's not like a bigger name. He should be.
Yes.
He's a name to me. I know who he is. I've seen him for a long, long time. One of my favorite parts he ever did was Hudson Hawk in Hudson Hawk. Not that he didn't play Hudson Hawk. Obviously, that was Bruce Willis, but he was the bad guy in that. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yes.
But Loki, it's just.
I think we see finally like the culmination of like the evolution of this version of Loki. Because, Mobius goes to shake his hand and he's like, "Nah, I'm going to hug you." Because
let's hug it out.
At that moment, I'm like, wow, he does really think of Mobius as a friend. It's like, huh.
He had feelings for Thor too, and you've already seen how he kind of developed over the years in the regular MCU timeline, where he comes to sacrifice himself almost for Thor and to have this relationship. He still cares about himself, and I still think there's some part of him, even in this show, where he's still a little bit self-centered, and he might turn out to be a trickster still at the end.
Right.
But I think meeting Sylvie has changed him because he's never been in love before. He's in love with, but like you said last week, which is very true, you have to learn to love yourself.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Before you can love somebody else.
Yes.
So what better way? The whole show is basically Loki therapy, right? So
yeah. Well, now that culminated with him. I'm going to stay, and I'm going to help her. And they literally go hand in hand towards the evil castle, right? So
they do, but he realizes that, which was a cool part of the story. He realizes that the sword, the weapons aren't going to do it. It's like the power has to come from within you, right?
Right.
To change. Right. So he goes back and he takes Sylvie's hand, and he finds out that he had this power all along too. It's like click your heels together 3 times, and you can go home. The power was already in you, right?
Right.
So they're able to enchant. What's the thing? What's the thing's called? I forget the thing.
I don't remember either, but it was a weird name.
Ezrath or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I forget, but it was a purple smoke monster like Lost. At first I was like, are they doing Lost? Because there's a smoke monster and there's a hatch and there's all kinds of stuff, because it did remind me a lot of Lost.
Right.
But although Lost could have stolen that from the comics, so who knows? But yeah, this creature was the guardian of. It's like basically Kang's beast, and it is purple. And as we know, Kang is a big fan of purple, and I don't know. I kind of feel like Kang is going to be more of a big deal, because we were talking about it a minute ago. Like Valentina's got purple, and the smoke monster's purple, and
Yes.
the void opens up, or the creature opens up, and there's the castle. I mean, is that where Kang lives? I mean, who are we going to see at the end?
Or is he imprisoned there and they free him, mistakenly or something? I don't know.
How could he be imprisoned though?
I don't know. It's time travel stuff. It can happen.
Well, I guess the question is, are they in Chronopolis now? Is that where
maybe.
the void is?
Yeah, maybe.
Because I mean, in Chronopolis, there's the Sphinx and there's all kinds of trophies that Kang has taken from parts of time. So I'm wondering if they're in Chronopolis now. So they're in the quantum realm. Maybe the whole thing takes place in the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Which, because time works differently, maybe the whole time it's the quantum realm all along.
It was time all along.
Maybe Miss Minutes is actually going to be in the castle going, hey, you can't take this stuff out.
Yeah.
Miss Minutes stalling, it's like, I can't find that file you're looking for. She's
Miss Minutes all along.
It was Miss Minutes all along, yeah.
See, and now I don't know Renslayer. Is she really bad, or was she truthful? I can't decipher if she was just.
No, I think she's really bad. I think because she betrays Sylvie. I think she's actually bad. At one point, I was thinking maybe she feels like she was duped a bit, but now I think she really. Either she's totally in on it, or she's only enough in on it to wonder what's going to happen. So will she show up at the end? But I mean, in the comics, she's Kang's girlfriend, basically, right?
Right. She pretty much cares about the outcome. She doesn't care who gets killed or whatever along the way. She just wants to get to the end game and figure out what's going on.
Well, I mean, maybe she fell for the wrong guy. I mean, that happens, right?
That could be. Yeah.
She just kind of goes along with him, but realizes that he's not the good guy that she thought he was.
Yeah, that could be.
And she's just trapped now because she can't escape, and maybe she's trying to hope for,
I do think,
I don't know.
and I think probably because there's a second season, but I do think that the main Loki that we've been following is beyond betraying the people that are around him or supposed friends just for his own sake, because I think that was kind of the point of this episode. Is I think he was as surprised probably as anybody else to hear him say that he wouldn't betray her, and then hugging Mobius. I think he was even surprised by that. So I think he's like, okay, so maybe this is a better way to be.
Well, that's possible, and I think that he had genuine emotion about Mobius getting pruned, because at that point he didn't know that you can come back from that. So he seemed genuinely upset about it. I don't know. I think partially it's that no one's ever talked to him and encouraged him the way Mobius, and no one ever believed him the way Mobius does. I mean, Mobius believed in him and gave him a reason to try to change. I don't know, and try to change for the better.
Yeah.
And so maybe he becomes, a better person. But yeah, you're right. I think he's evolved, and this version of Loki, which doesn't have to be the definitive version by any means. In fact, it's not really, because the definitive version got killed by Thanos, right?
Right.
In the primary timeline, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So what is the future of this Loki? I don't know, because he's not supposed to exist. None of them are supposed to exist, and yet here they are. So
we'll have another season to explore that if we don't find out in Doctor Strange. So
this because Kang appears in the next Ant-Man, and because of Multiverse of Madness, and because of a bunch of other things that are coming up in Phase 4. If Kang turns out to be the big bad, working with Valentina and maybe with Agatha Harkness, because Agatha Harkness also a big fan of purple. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So all this stuff could tie together nicely. But the real question is, do we see Kang in the castle at the end, or is it, somebody else? What's going to happen, do you think?
I think it's going to be something completely different, because at this point, everything I've expected to happen in all of the Marvel shows so far turns out not to be the case. It's either a variation of it or a complete different twist.
But then why have all these I mean, this is even more than in WandaVision for Mephisto. It's like they have everything. Why have Ravonna Renslayer? Why have all of these things
I think they're gonna,
that point directly to this character that is going to be in a show coming up soon?
I don't know that they're going to be obvious about it. And again, I'm not going to hate the show if they don't do that. I really hope,
no, I won't either.
I hope it's Kang, because I really like the character in the comics, and actually he's actually various versions. There's other characters that are Kang, but at different points in his timeline, they're called other things. So it'll be, yeah, I'm just kind of interested to see what they do with it. So I do hope it is Kang, but we'll see. We'll find out next week. We'll talk about it.
That's right. We will. Yeah, I won't be upset if it's something different, and they will sometimes subvert expectations.
Yes. On purpose.
But this particular show in this particular episode seems to be giving a lot of fan service, though, with all the cool Easter eggs.
That was so great.
Yeah, it was just, there's so many things. It's like almost impossible. I can think of like 10 more things that are just like, wow, really? That's awesome. You know, President Loki losing his hand. You know, it's just.
See,
anyway.
Here's the thing. Now that we've got the pigs from Black Widow, we'll have presumably
Alligator Loki.
I think we had Lockjaw in the Inhumans TV series. We've seen Frog Thor. We have Alligator Loki. We need to have a Pet Avengers series.
There you go. Pet Avengers. The Pet Avengers. I like it.
Yes. Yeah.
It'll never happen, but I like it.
No, but I would like any of those. I would like to have their own series, and if they could team them up, please, that would be awesome. Kevin Feige, if you're listening to this podcast, there you go.
Is that Inhuman show canon? I don't know if it is.
It shouldn't be, but
no, it wasn't very good.
No,
I felt bad for everyone in that show
because it had some great people in the show.
It did. Well, what's his face? He's okay. He's in the new Star Trek. So.
Anson Mount recovered.
From
tripping there. So.
Well, you know, it probably seemed like a good idea on paper, but and I like those characters. But yeah, it was poorly done. I don't know what happened exactly.
Yeah, again, they didn't set out to make anything bad. It's just whatever. It just didn't click and fall into place. I don't know.
Although Anson Mount's like, your character can't speak unless he's blowing shit up.
Right.
So you don't open your mouth in this entire show. Well, that's an interesting acting challenge, but maybe I don't like it as much as I thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'll be great as Pike, though. I mean, he already was, but he'll be great in that show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm not worried about any of them. But
that wrap filming, so I'm looking forward to seeing that pretty soon. Hopefully.
I know. Cannot wait.
Anyway, so yeah, another great episode of Loki, probably the best one, partially because of all the cool Easter eggs, but also just because.
You keep saying that, but
I know. Well, that's good. They keep getting better, not worse.
Yes, and I agree with you. Each episode, I'm like, all right, this is the best one yet.
It is the best one yet. And then the last one, the finale, or the season finale, if you will be the ultimate in fan service when Iron Man shows up and says,
when they in the castle they find Robert Downey Jr. They find Tony Stark, and he's not dead.
This is where Tony Stark got pruned to. He's not dead.
Yeah, exactly.
During the snap, or Thanos is there. He's like, I'm inevitable. I'm always here. Hello. Do you see my helicopter out there? I just landed.
Right. All I got to do is fix it, and I'm out of here.
Yeah, it was cool. Anyway, do we want to say anything else about Loki?
No, I think
I'm digging it. So, all right, well, then find the Flickcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, and Stitcher, and other places like that. You can find Joe at What Joe Writes on the socials, and you can find me at Chris U, and you can find the Flickcast at the Flickcast. You can find us, all the other places like that. And if you love the show and want to support us in other ways besides just reviews or even a like or a rating on Apple Podcasts, you can give us a star rating. We'd appreciate that. Or if you really want to do it, you could throw a few bucks towards the show on Patreon, which we don't keep. It just goes to buy microphones for Joe or get Mike a better editing rig or something. So it's not like we're making millions of dollars, but if you want to support the show like that would be awesome. Or not. I mean, we'll just keep doing it. It's not like we're trying to become millionaires or anything.
Those ratings would be great though. If you
don't have the money,
liking
liking the show on Apple Podcasts in particular would be super cool. So thanks for that.
Please and thank you.
So we'll be back next week. We'll talk more about Loki, of course, the finale, and we'll probably talk about a few other movies. We didn't touch on the Soderbergh film that we wanted to talk about.
Yes, not
No Sudden
wait
Move.
to talk about that. Yes,
want to hit that up next week. And we'll probably have more on Black Widow. We'll have more. Oh, we didn't even talk about What If. We should talk about that next week too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That looked cool. The new trailer for What If, the Marvel animated series that comes after Loki.
Yep.
Looks interesting with most of the MCU cast reprising their voice, doing their voices in the show.
Yep.
Okay, so that's cool. So that's a full show. Anything else, Joe?
I think we're good. I'm all nerded out for this week, I think.
You're all nerded out for this week. So
Yes.
all right, cool. All right, so for Joe Dilworth, I'm Chris Ulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thanks so much for listening.